as long as we can get calls. Time for the show.
Yay. That's always fun. Well, it's on buzz anyway, so it's not going to hurt anything.
Won't you listen to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah! Gotta get away from this illusion. For the sake of the world, this delusion. It's gotta go. Yeah!
Hey everybody, welcome to the Atheist Experience Live. It's July 1st, 2012. I'm Matt Dillahunty. That's Martin Wagner. You're the people watching the show. Let's get the ball rolling. What do you got?
Hi.
No, we've
Amazing, isn't it? I'm
significantly
back, yes.
shortened the announcements.
That is good,
They're
yes.
not quite that short, though.
No.
I think I actually want to start off talking about last week's show. There were a lot of people who really enjoyed last week's show. I wasn't one of them. And
You were just kind of having one of those days.
well, yeah, I mean, I dislocated a shoulder, so I was in pain. But yeah, there's no excuse. There were better ways to handle some of the calls. A lot of people I know liked it and were like, hey, you tried to tell them, there's no point in having this particular conversation, and they kept poking, so they deserve what they get. But I don't, as much as people may enjoy it, I don't actually enjoy being an asshole just for the sake of being an asshole. And I felt like last week I was.
You have really good sound reasons for being an asshole.
Yeah, my
It's an art
position
form, being
has
an
been
asshole.
that people tend to get or should get as good as they give on the show. And that means if they're not having an honest discussion and they're just calling in to preach or hear themselves talk, then they deserve to be ridiculed or mocked or whatever.
Or at least called on it, right?
But
I mean,
the
whatever
fact
they're
that
trying to
somebody just
pull.
doesn't understand something,
Yeah.
my thing is that we should make an effort to do a better job of trying to explain it, and then call the conversation to an end if there's no hope of education
gaining
or
any ground,
reconciliation.
yeah.
So I'm going to make a concerted effort to avoid having more shows like last week. So those of you who really enjoyed it, you might as well just stop watching now. Because on the other hand, I went camping again this weekend. So I might be a big old dick today,
I
too.
mean, it's a fuse ready to go.
Yeah.
It's,
No! So anyway...
Gonna try to be the kinder, gentler atheist experience today.
Well, I'm gonna at least be more thoughtful. But anyway,
Right.
one of the things
good.
that happened this week that you wrote a blog post about was some evangelicals lost their mind over Oreos.
Ah, yes. Yeah, that, let's see, Oreos and General Mills cereal and what did they do to deserve all this abuse and opprobrium and protest?
Well, they
and
support marriage equality just generally.
do they?
And there was this really cool picture of an Oreo with like rainbow-colored stuffing.
Like seven different.
It was awesome.
Yes.
One of my favorite rebuttals after people started losing their mind was they showed the rainbow-colored one, and so that it's no surprise that the evangelicals don't like this one. And then it showed just the regular old black and white Oreo because they didn't used to like this one either. Once upon a time. So today I brought in heads or tails Oreos. These Oreos go both ways, which should piss off the evangelicals even more.
Those are the really interracial Oreos.
I just love Oreos, but the fact that this one's got like the blondie side and then the dark side, who knows?
So it's a yin and yang of
but
cookie
the
dough.
magic is in the middle.
That it is.
You can talk for a minute.
Well, not just that's not necessarily my.
I think I'm getting
personal.
gayer right now.
Yeah, there's
These are dangerous.
a little rainbowy thingy seeping in there. You might want to be careful because it's gonna. No, Matt. No, look. There's just not.
It's like special cream.
You got to stop this, man. I mean, it's
This cookie is fabulous. I didn't say that right.
Really?
Fabulous.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
they're here.
No.
Spread them out.
Oh, all right.
Let everybody have Oreos. Be Gay and Marry. Ooh, M-E-R-R-Y and M-A-R-R-Y as well. Anyway, we're going to, because the show's only an hour and not 90 minutes, we're not just going to keep vamping here on all kinds of subjects. But cool that there are companies that are out there supporting marriage equality and making people look like bigger douches. Kind of annoying. So, let's get to Matt in Oslo, Norway, who has called like 3 weeks in a row right at the end of the show, and I apologize we hadn't got him on. Matt, you're on now.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, we do. Thanks for waiting 3 weeks or more.
The first week you hung up on me, and then I called in too late the second week, and yeah, now I'm finally here, and you're not gonna slip away this time. Yeah, man.
Well.
I got you on the hook now, yeah.
I have the control box for the phone in front of me, so I'm not sure who's got who on the hook. But go ahead.
Let's have some fun.
Let's enjoy it. What's
Show's
up?
beginning. I have Oreos. Let's talk. It's gonna be a good show.
Okay, Matt. So I got proof that evolution is bullshit, and
You do.
yes,
So
and I
let
can
me-
prove creationism once and for all.
Hang on.
Hang on. Do you have a Nobel Prize to go with that proof? Do you have a
No.
PhD in biology to go with that proof?
I don't need
Do you
a
have
I don't
peer-reviewed
know.
scientific papers that you have written and
That
published to
matters.
go with that proof?
Martin. Come on. That's
No,
not
I mean
nice.
it's like you're coming on the show, and right out of the gate you're claiming that you can show that a foundational pillar of
Okay,
biological
sorry.
science
It was
is
a bit
bullshit.
exaggerated, okay? I admit
So
that.
yeah, I mean, can you demonstrate that you have any remote expertise or knowledge to make that claim?
Well, let's say this. You just admitted that it's an exaggeration. It's fine. I'm okay with some hyperbole. My question is the same one that I asked another caller last week, which is, let's say, for example, that you could right now disprove evolution. What difference does that make? My atheism is not contingent upon evolution being true.
Yeah, no.
So what difference? Why would you call into an atheist show to try and disprove evolution? Because we're not biologists. We're not here to actually review anything. We're not experts on the subject of evolution. Anything we say here could just be incorrect. And even if you proved it wrong, it still doesn't prove that creationism is true.
Yeah. There's a few reasons, I suppose. The first one is that I've talked to many Christians and atheists, and many atheists say that the reason they can't believe the Bible is because it says that man was created, and then evolution totally goes against that, you know? So that's a big reason, I suppose, and if evolution actually was proven wrong, then more people would become Christian, maybe.
Well, then they'd
perhaps,
have really
perhaps.
bad reasons for it. I mean, there may be people who say, I can't believe Christianity because the Bible says people are created. But that's only one of many things that are wrong with Christianity, not the least of which is you can't demonstrate that it's actually true.
Well, I can demonstrate that it's true, and that's why I'm calling in here in the first place, you know?
Well, I would suggest that you start with proving that your religious claims are true and not say, I'm here to disprove evolution.
Okay, well, I got evidence, like, for creationism as well. Like, I can start with that, you know?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so there's this specific animal I would like to talk about. And I think it's only logical if it came from creationism, you know? And I got a few reasons for that. First of all, the physical appearance of the animal, like, it makes no sense considering where it lives at, you know?
Well, which
And,
animal are you referring to?
I'm referring to Tasmanian tiger. You might want to Google that.
Thylacine?
because you probably never heard of it.
You're talking about thylacine?
Yeah, thylacine.
Okay.
Okay, like, if you look at this animal now, I hope you got a picture up on it. It looks like a dog, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it lives south of Australia. It looks like a wolf, you know, not a dog, like, more like a wolf, you know. Like, and while at the same time, it looks like a tiger, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because of the stripes. Now, this would only make sense in the regard that, you know, because, you know, it has no reason to look like a wolf, you know, because, you know, it's in Australia, you know, there's no native animals there that look like wolves, you know.
Well, it's
And this
isn't
lonely,
thylacine?
specific animal,
Hang
in
on,
the
Matt.
only family of species, like, you know, like, it looks like that. It's really fishy, you know. I think that's actually creationism, you know.
So your argument about thylacine is that you think It is evidence for a creator simply because its appearance is not something that you can think of a better explanation for other than a creator. In other words, its appearance is baffling, and therefore you don't think it could have an evolutionary lineage. That's
yes.
basically your argument.
That's called an argument from ignorance fallacy.
I wouldn't say that, Matt.
I would.
Well, it is. It is.
I mean, I'm just saying it is.
Yeah.
If you say, I think, that explanation A is true because it hasn't been proven false, that's argument from ignorance. In this case, what you're talking about is more about what Dawkins has referred to as the argument from personal incredulity, and that is, I don't see how any other explanation could be better. That's not the way science is done. That's not the way we get to reality. Is to say, I can't think of anything that fits this better, so I'm going with this. Well, okay. Maybe you just have a failure of imagination or education.
No. Wait. Okay, so it shouldn't directly point towards creationism. Okay, that's a bit ignorant, I must say. But
What about this points towards creationism? The fact that it looks like a couple of different animals, and you don't see how
not
that's
like a couple of different animals. It's more of a strange mixture that I don't think
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions really quickly before we go on, and I promise I won't be a smartass. All right?
I might.
No. Two questions that I have for you. First off, I'd like to get from you a definition of evolution. If I were to ask you, Matt, what is evolution? How would you define that for me?
Well,
can you just tell me what it is? Can you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think evolution is like a theory, because I don't think it's real science. I think that it's about the adaptation of species to, for example, climate changes and stuff like that. And that's my definition of it. Like adaptation, changes, and all that jazz.
I'm sorry that you waited 3 weeks to come in and talk about something that you clearly don't understand.
Yeah. See, because when you stumble upon a basic definition like that, if you want to critique a science like evolution, which is a very well-founded, it's a cornerstone of modern sciences. That's fine. That's what science is all about: challenging, the existing paradigm, knowledge, always looking for different answers, new answers, questioning what is thought to be true, etc., etc. That's great, but you need to, at the very least, have a sound grasp at a basic level of what it is you're claiming to be able to refute. Okay.
Well,
and it should kind of start, it helps if you aren't just stumbling through a very basic definition of evolution, which can essentially be said to be changes in the frequency of genes, gene frequencies, allele frequencies in population groups over time. That's how scientists, that's how biologists define evolution. Okay. Now, so you need to know what you're talking about before you can say, I have really, really good reasons for thinking that this whole scientific theory is not well-founded, and here are my reasons based on my understanding of it. Yeah.
See, here's the other thing is,
and you don't have that.
Let's say that you did actually understand what evolution was.
And I do, yeah.
No, you don't. You just demonstrate. You could not give a clear definition of the science, of the theory. You couldn't do that just now.
And you started with, it's a theory, not a fact, which demonstrates that you don't understand the basics of science. Because facts are things that are explained by theories. Theories are the graduation point of ideas in science.
Okay, Matt.
Facts are inferior. Facts are just observations.
Okay, Matt, but then why does America, 4 out of 10 Americans, only accept evolution?
Because they're poorly
the rest
educated.
Of them are poorly educated.
We have a very bad education, and this leads to the second question that I had for you, Matt.
Okay.
The second question that I had for you, and the first one was, asking for the definition. In America, we have almost half the people here. Yes, they do reject evolution. Why? Because we have a very poor educational system in this country, and it keeps getting worse. Okay, we have conservative politicians out there who defund education. We have a guy in the state next door, Bobby Jindal, governor of Louisiana, who really wants to miseducate children over there. He has a voucher program that will allow people to get state money to send their kids to religious schools where they will learn that the Loch Ness Monster disproves evolution. So maybe you guys and the Loch Ness Monster people could get together on your dueling refutations and hammer it all out. But my question to you is, in contrast to America, okay, over in Norway, you guys have really good science education. You guys have a really good educational system. You've got something like 98% adult literacy. It's barely 60% here in America. You have really good schools.
Yeah.
So how did creationism get its hooks into you?
Well,
Right? I mean, why would somebody from a culture like yours accept something as completely cockamamie as creationism when you have had access to a much better science education than just about any American in a public school over here?
Well, I actually have some doubts about my own beliefs right now. Like, I recently got that. Actually, there's not, like, there are other creationists as well in Norway. Like, I'm not the only one, even if you make it sound like that. And
No, but what I'm saying is, in America, at least people have the excuse of having bad schools and a heavily religious culture to influence them away from getting a sound science education. You don't really have that excuse over in Norway. So I'm just curious why this was more attractive to you than being able to learn the facts, which you're able to do in Norway. You have with the good schools and the good education that you have over there.
Anyone can learn the facts by Googling it,
I think he already told us why it's more attractive to him. He looks at something like the thylacine. He doesn't understand evolution. And
not only that, no. I also listen to Kent Hovind and Eric Hovind and Paul Taylor. And,
I haven't finished talking. I'm sure you've been influenced by a bunch of buffoons who don't understand science. A bunch of people who are polluting this. So basically what you're saying is the idiots from America that have been poisoning the mind of our people have made their way to Norway. I understand. You've already explained you don't understand evolution, and you look at something like thylacine, and without even bothering to investigate it, you take a cursory glance at it and say, creationism explains this better than my lack of understanding of evolution. You know what? You know why creationism seems to explain it better, even though it doesn't explain a thing? It's because magic works as an explanation for anything. It doesn't actually explain a thing. In order to explain something, we tend to explain things in terms of other things that we already understand. Creationism is an attempt to explain the mystery of the diversity of life by appealing to a bigger mystery. There's no explanatory power there. It is indistinguishable from its magic. And that's why, hey, I just did a coin trick for you. You don't know how I could have possibly done that with my fingers, therefore, magic explains it. Well, I'm sorry that you have a failure of imagination and a failure of investigation. Maybe you could actually go study thylacines and thylacine history. Where you've been and actually gone out and done the research on thylacine DNA and morphology and things like that?
Conversion evolution?
I mean, where did you do this? Because I don't think thylacine's in Norway. Did you go to Australia?
No. You don't need to go and see them. I mean, they're extinct, by the way.
I'm aware of that, and so are their ancestors that would offer you the evolutionary explanation that you don't seem to want to grasp.
Okay, Matt, I'll admit. Okay, this is a bad example. Okay, and
why would you?
Probably
creationism. I think
I'll agree on that one, but
you'll agree what?
I'll agree that it probably isn't creationism then, if you're going to put it like that.
Okay, so you call up to say that you're going to disprove evolution, and then we actually explain why that's pointless, and then you tell us that you can prove creationism, and your first example is thylacine, which you now admit is a bad example. So are you done believing creationism? I mean, did you come in with your 10th best argument? Because I'd recommend that in a short format show, you come in with your best argument. So what is your best argument for creationism?
Well, it's a bit personal, I don't have any empirical evidence. Faith is you don't need evidence. You have faith. You believe in something, just to believe it. So
yeah.
I guess I don't have any, real evidence that I can provide you, but...
Okay.
Okay, Matt. Thank you.
Thanks. I hope that you realize that this lack of evidence probably means that you're believing something without a good reason. Because faith is not a pathway to truth. Faith is the excuse people give when they don't have a good reason. Now, if creationism is true, shouldn't we be able to have good reasons for it?
Yeah.
So find those good reasons and call us back.
Wait. I wanted to talk about something more.
No.
Yeah.
No, we
have
got a
other
short
call.
show.
We have an hour
We've
show. We got
dumped
more
this
guys to
one.
get on to.
Talk about something more when you come back with more. Thanks.
Song, Matt.
That last sentence of mine made less sense than what he was talking about, I think.
It's okay.
Anyway, Andrew in Bethlehem, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
Pretty
Hi.
good.
I called before, but I have another point to make about when people say they want to prove God exists.
Mm-hmm.
They're not trying to prove God exists with certainty. What they're trying to say is that the possibility exists.
Okay.
They're trying to prove that the possibility exists.
Sure.
For
So,
God.
assuming you're correct, because we could talk about degrees of certainty and everything else. Number one, I don't see any. Now, it depends on what you mean by possibility. If you mean that it's not absolutely impossible, I actually don't care whether or not you can prove that something's possible. Which, if you can just demonstrate that something is not logically excluded.
Do you mean physical evidence?
Well, yeah.
Well, or just anything that can be studied or observed.
I hadn't really finished what I was saying.
Sure.
It's saying that you can prove that something is possible doesn't make any difference, because possible doesn't equal true. And I care about true things, and I want to believe true things. And so instead of possible, we should talk about perhaps probable, which would actually include some demonstration that there's a good reason to think this is true or likely true. That's why we have beliefs, and that's how we go about justifying them. So I don't care if your particular God is possible. I mean, that's just saying that you've managed to come up with a God that's not logically inconsistent, which, by the way, I'm not sure I agree with, depending on your God.
Yeah. And also, I just, I'm sorry, I'll just make a quick point here and let you get on with it. Sometimes you will hear theists and Christians make the argument that, God is a concept, a being that is beyond scientific understanding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And generally those are more or less ways of dodging the issue. But one phrase that you'll hear repeated often is that absence of evidence does not equate to evidence of absence. And I would disagree with that. I think you would disagree with
it's
that.
false.
Yeah, because in situations where, if the claim were true, you would expect to have evidence. And I think that in situations where most claims, I can't think of a claim that would be a true claim where you would not expect to find evidence that would say, yes, in fact, that is true, right? Whether it's a god, whether it's ghosts, whether it's elves tending your garden, if you're going to make a claim about something and you want to be able to say, okay, that is the true answer, there's this puzzle that we're trying to solve, there's this fact that we're trying to come to grips with, and in order to distinguish this being the true thing from all these other possibilities that aren't the true thing, what do we look at? What do we look at as our evidence? And so yes, you would expect to find, I think, certain conditions would exist in the universe if the universe were the creation of an all-knowing, all-powerful, sentient, purposeful deity, right? Because I've never had a Christian tell me what they think a non-God designed universe would look like. How would it function?
Well,
How would
we're
it
talking
operate?
about God, so we're
Yeah.
not necessarily talking about Christianity.
But I'm just
or
talking
even-
about like evidence
Sure.
and what we would, what we mean when we say that.
Sorry. So, go ahead, Andrew.
So,
Well, I have a website. It's Proof of God, and it's godtruestory.webs.com. What I do there, I try to list like all the attributes of God: all-knowing, all good, all powerful.
can you say that URL
And I
again?
try to show how they're consistent. Now, something that you said earlier was that
Proof of God.
faith is the absence of reason. I think what it really is faith is the absence of physical evidence. Now, when you say evidence, I think what you're really saying just about all the time is, do you have physical evidence?
What kind of
God?
other evidence is there?
Well, what I provide is rational evidence.
I'm fine with rational argument.
An argument that anyone could look at, and
Andrew?
then, no matter what they believe in, and they would accept the argument.
Andrew, I'm fine with rational arguments, but rational arguments are formed on premises, and the premises need to be demonstrated to be true. So if we're talking about something that is real, then the premises must demonstrate that this is actually real. So, I mean, my question to you about what other evidence was there was whether or not you were making an appeal to supernatural evidence or extrasensory evidence or things like that.
Well, here's how I feel about God. God would be a pure mind. So when I say rational evidence, I just look at my own mind and I just extrapolate.
Sure.
Okay, so what's your basis for thinking that that's what God is?
Well, it's just about the fundamental idea with every religion is God is a mind.
Okay, but
it's an absolute mind.
Okay.
So, by definition, God would be an absolute mind because that would be the power.
I don't even know what absolute mind is.
Okay. Well, earlier, Martin said that how would a non-godlike universe look like? I would say that universe would not possess consciousness.
How do you? Whoa! So you think if a universe existed without being created by a god, that universe could not have consciousness?
And here's the reason why.
And what do you mean exactly by that? Do you mean that the universe itself would not be a conscious entity, or that the universe would not contain like beings like us in it that have consciousness?
It would not possess conscious beings.
Sure. How did you get to that
now,
conclusion?
why would that be the case?
Well, because let me correct that. Actually, it would not have rationally conscious beings.
Whoa!
That's hair splitting. I mean,
well, conscious is just say self-awareness, but
okay.
I'm talking about like
a dog is self-aware, right? I mean, you know.
What makes you think that there could be a non-created universe with conscious entities that were incapable of rational thought? I mean, that rational thought would be excluded in this.
It would be a universe that can't think about its own existence.
I understand what you're describing. I'm asking why.
Well, if we look at, say, a tree shrew is an animal that we would suppose doesn't have any rational thought.
Maybe
but it has
not.
the same evolved brain that humans do, in the sense that it has the same body to brain mass ratio. It also has the same frontal lobe curvature, the same aspects. A lot of
okay, but why would this be a thing that would still require a deity creating it?
No, don't concede that.
Yeah.
No. You're saying that a tree shrew isn't rational. Prove it.
That's.
I mean, a tree shrew is at least self-aware.
You know, we've trained all kinds of animals.
For calling now, I can't.
We've trained all kinds of animals to do things. They don't necessarily demonstrate the same level of thought that we do, but they demonstrate, hey, if I push this button, I get a treat, and if I push this other button, I get the shit shocked out of me. Yeah. Isn't that rational thought?
But according to the criteria I specified, this is the same criteria neuroscientists claim how humans evolved consciously. I mean,
let's just take it back to basic self-awareness, okay? If the forest is burning, a tree shrew will be sufficiently self-aware that it will try to run from the flames to preserve its own life. So that's at least that much self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So when you defined what you consider consciousness, rational thought, as simply self-awareness earlier in this conversation, the tree shrew qualifies. So
on that basic level, yes. Yeah. But I'm talking about like a rational self-awareness about its own existence. Sure, it would move in order to save its life, but it's not pondering about.
There are no philosophical tree shrews, is what you're saying. And so that level of cognition requires a creator, is what you're saying.
There's no evidence
or a universal mind.
Because if we look at consciousness, we all know the components of how consciousness emerged or evolved. We all know the chemical properties that caused it to.
Sure. So if we don't know, by your own admission, how did you determine that it's impossible for it to happen in a universe without a God, and that tree shrews don't have this?
Well, you would just suppose that it came from a higher mind. I mean.
No. You don't just get to suppose that something comes from a higher mind. That's not how. Maybe you don't have reasoned thought.
Yeah.
That is, I'm actually asking you to demonstrate something, and you're just saying, no, you just get to suppose it. Well, I'm going to suppose.
I think it's more probable that it came from a higher mind than that it evolved.
I don't care what you think.
Evolved.
I don't care what you think is more probable. I care what you can demonstrate is more probable. How do you demonstrate this?
That would be hard.
You betcha. And so if you believe it, if you believe that it's true and probable right now, and you admit that you can't demonstrate this right now, aren't you believing something without a good reason?
Well, now we're going back to where we started because,
I just asked a question.
Okay.
You have admitted that you can't demonstrate this, correct?
I can't physically demonstrate it, yes.
And yet you believe it to be true, correct?
That's where faith enters.
Okay, and that's why I don't give a rat's ass, because
Okay.
faith is the excuse people give for believing something when they can't demonstrate it, when they don't have a good reason. We're back to my definition. I don't care what you have faith in. People can have faith in anything. Faith is not a justification, it's not a demonstration of truth, it's not a path of truth. It's gullibility.
Well, now what you're talking about is the difference between conviction and faith. Because if we look at, like, according to, it seems to me like you're convinced by things if they're physically demonstrable. But,
Yeah.
Well, that's at least
there's an
something
answer,
you
that's
can look at.
physicalism. You seem to believe that everything real must be physically
No, you're
observable. But can
confusing,
you physically prove
Andrew.
that is true?
Andrew,
That's the
you're
question.
wow.
If
Andrew,
you can't physically prove that is
oh
true.
shit. Andrew, you're on hold, not hung up on. You're confusing philosophical naturalism with methodological naturalism. Methodological naturalism is the purview of science that says, you know what, we can't rely on faith and supernatural explanations. We have to rely on evidence and data. Philosophical naturalism, on the other hand, is the assertion that only the physical world is real. I'm not making that case. I'm talking about what is believable, what is demonstrable. And you've already admitted that what you're talking about is not demonstrable, that you have to rely on faith for it.
That's where faith enters. It's a matter
Yeah,
of
and
conviction
why?
versus faith.
Why?
But because science seems to have limitations, unless you accept physicalism as true.
No.
I accept the fact that science has limitations.
You're saying that this is where faith comes in, and I
getting
asked
a
why. And your answer is because science has limits. Correct.
Yes. I accept,
Correct.
yeah.
Now, why are you justified in just applying faith when you reach the limit of science? How is that not gullibility?
Well, that's not really true. I'm not just applying faith. I also have a rational argument that's consistent that I accept. That seems more probable than the idea that the mind evolved from out of whatever.
In other
it
words,
evolved from.
the
According
argument
to
from incredulity fallacy is your rational argument. It simply seems more probable that it would be this than that. It seems more fantastic that it would be the other thing than this thing that I prefer to be the answer. All you're doing is you're spackling over the gaps in the knowledge with faith, with assumptions, with assertions, with leaps that you don't really have a justification for making. You're hitting the wall where you admit this is where the limits of my knowledge are, but what you do when you hit that wall is you say, this is as far as we've gotten now. This is how you approach these questions honestly. You say, this is as far as we've gotten now. So what do? We keep studying. We try to learn more. We don't say, okay, this is as far as we've gotten now, but in order to get over here, which is where I want to get, I'll just create a bridge of imagination. I'll just make stuff up, and I'll create the bridge myself.
Science hasn't opened this door yet.
Yeah.
But it sure seems more probable to me that there's a lion on the other side of the door than a tiger.
The best you can say from your position, Andrew, is, look, this is as far, maybe it could be this, maybe it could be the other thing, but you're not in a position to say, this is the answer, because it seems more probable than this or that. You still have to, as long as you admit you don't know.
You don't get
still don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
I'm open to
And you shouldn't
possibilities, same as
be-
you.
yeah,
I hope
you shouldn't-
neuroscience does continue to look into
The phones are going to piss me off.
the
The no
origins of
is.
consciousness. But I have
Andrew,
faith that
The
they won't
point
have
is,
to-
Andrew, you don't want to make the basic mistake that creationists and, generally speaking, religious people who don't really grasp how the scientific method works do. You don't want to get in the position of simply putting your ignorance on an altar and calling it God.
Well, when
That's
I'm
what you
saying
don't
that
wanna
God
do.
is possible, I'm open for possibilities, including neuroscience coming up with the answer.
As long as you don't mistake a possibility or a probability from an established fact, from an actual answer where you can say this is the answer.
And as long as you stop saying something is probable when you admit that you have no criteria by which to determine a calculation of probability.
Well, you're talking about physical probabilities. So you have to have a physical test to determine how probable is this idea of mine.
Let me do this, Andrew. Let me do this, because if I don't, I'm just going to hang up on you. Here we go. There are two possibilities. Either a God manifests in reality, or no God manifests in reality, correct?
True.
Okay. Those gods that don't manifest in reality are completely indistinguishable from those that don't exist, correct?
No. No, because
how do you distinguish?
You could say it's a group of fairies that created the universe.
No, you're not listening.
Oh my goodness.
Either a God manifests in reality, or it doesn't. If this God exists and doesn't manifest in reality in any way, it is indistinguishable. Its existence is indistinguishable from its non-existence because it's not manifesting in reality.
Okay, let me get.
Yes or no?
Let me get what you're trying to say. All right, you're trying to say whether or not it's Zeus. It could be Zeus. It could be.
No.
Stop. Listen to what I'm actually saying. This is really simple. Here's three gods. Go back to Tracy's analogy, and I'll twist it. This God exists and manifests in reality. This God exists and does not manifest in reality, and this God does not exist. Please tell me how to distinguish between numbers 2 and 3.
Okay, the last God does not exist.
The last God doesn't exist. That's number 3.
Exist, but does
and
not
number 2,
manifest in reality.
Correct. How do you distinguish between those two?
Through rational thought.
How?
Based on the probability, how did the consciousness...
Yeah.
Done.
When you can form a rational thought and a coherent one, please call back.
Wow.
Until then, yeah.
Okay, so
he
I'm
was spinning after one.
going
Yeah.
to finish my thought because this is important.
I need an Oreo.
Go ahead.
Want an Oreo?
We need more levity. Okay. Really? Matt from Oslo called back already?
No, let's.
Too bad. Next week.
Yeah.
Next week I will talk to Matt from Oslo. Actually, I won't be here next week, so Russell can talk to Matt from Oslo. I will be at the Secular Student Alliance Leadership Conference.
You're welcome,
Okay,
Russell.
so there's two possibilities. Either God manifests in reality, or it doesn't. Now, if it doesn't manifest in reality, my contention is that this God is indistinguishable from a God that doesn't exist, because we only are able to actually examine things that manifest in reality. So, you can think that there's a God out there that doesn't manifest in reality, and you have no rational justification for it. And what you believe in is indistinguishable to you and every other thinking being on this planet from the God that doesn't exist. Therefore, it's a big old fat time waster, and I will not waste time discussing it. Which means in order for us to have a discussion, you better be talking about a God that manifests in reality. And that by definition, if it manifests in reality, then this is at least theoretically detectable, in which case you should be able to produce evidence. Yes, physical evidence, real evidence. And by the way, every single one of you sitting out there who is a Christian, that's the God you believe in. If you're a Muslim, that's the God that you believe in. If you're a Hindu, well, maybe one or two of them are. Go down the list. Everybody who has posited the existence of a God and formed a religion, with a couple of minor exceptions of philosophical deism and some kind of different versions of Buddhism, but by and large, when we're talking about the world's major religions, especially the Abrahamic traditions, right down to Mormons, they're positing the existence of a God who manifests in reality, and they sing songs about it, how often he manifests in reality. And they make claims all the time about how he manifests in reality.
They claim he answers prayers.
Answers prayer, heals people, finds your car keys, whatever. If that's the God you're talking
Won me
about,
this Grammy.
please come and talk. Because that's the only God that matters. If you want to call in and talk about, well, my God is logically possible, I don't care. All you're saying is that it's not impossible that there's a being out there somewhere that might qualify for the criteria that I'm putting on the God thing. I care what's actually true, what's demonstrably true. So if the only conversation worth having is about a God that manifests in reality, if it manifests in reality, it's at least theoretically detectable. And by the way, all of you who believe in it, who claim to have had these experiences, are claiming to be God detectors. How hard is that to get through your skull?
And to-
Ooh, I felt the Holy Spirit coming through me, and I know that God healed my aunt of cancer. Well, congratulations. You've made a testable claim.
Have an Oreo, my son.
Thank you.
I shouldn't have
You've made a testable claim.
And another
that's
thing,
worth talking about.
There's not a single Christian who got up this morning, put on nice clothes, and went to sit in church who believes in a God that is just a possibility or an idea. Every single church-going Christian in this country, and I would say around the world, believes in a God who does real stuff.
Yep.
And who is going to do a real thing. When they really die, they think they've got a real soul inside that's going to get plucked out like a pomegranate seed and shipped off to some wonderful place called heaven, where I guess it's
Or
fruit
hell.
table and pizza and yeah. And they think these are real things that are going to happen. When this lunatic Harold Camping was doing his old, it's all going to end recently, he got the people who sent him money and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then the world didn't end that day. They were really, genuinely bewildered that didn't happen. They thought an actual physical event was going to occur. The end of the world, the rapture, them going up and waving goodbye to all his sinners. We're talking real things. That's what Christians actually believe. So theoretical gods, logical gods, possible gods.
I love philosophy. I'm just chilling back with an Oreo.
I like Oreos.
Nothing gay about that.
No.
I like philosophy. I like having philosophical discussions. We've had debates about free will.
That Oreo's totally 69ing, look.
Well, it's because you stuck your nose into their bedroom. Close that back up. You don't care. You shouldn't be allowed to peek into other people's bedrooms unless they ask you to. But I love philosophical discussions. I have a passion for the transcendental argument for the existence of God. That's going on YouTube.
Gotcha.
And I love discussions about identity. I think it's incredibly important how we go about determining who we are and what sort of definitions we're going to put on identity. We're going to have big issues in the future that deal with identity, that deal with, maybe not necessarily whether or not we have free will, but how we deal in a world where we most probably don't have free will or it's an illusion. We're going to have issues related to identity. We're already having all sorts of issues related to other smaller subsets of identity. For years, the intersex individuals have been either had their sex determined by a doctor or raised under one enculturated gender identity. There are people now who fit into every possible category, and some categories we couldn't even have dreamed possible. And these are all people, and we're going to have to deal with the interactions there. I love we have big problems coming down the pipe, and religion is standing in the way because it has these archaic black and white, which are mostly wrong, ideas about identity and interaction.
In-group, out-group thinking.
I'll have debates on tag, and I love the philosophical stuff. But not a one of you became a Christian because of the transcendental argument for the existence of God. I'm sure somebody will write me or call in and say, "You're wrong, sir. I was an atheist, and it's the transcendental argument for the existence of God that convinced me to be a Christian."
Now you're going to get
liar!
100 trolls.
You are
gonna
a
send
liar.
That,
You are absolutely a liar, because first of all, transcendental argument for the existence of God can't get to Christianity.
There's 50 people in the chat room right now who are composing that email just to piss you off.
I don't care. I can delete emails. My point is this. You believe in something, and you've got some reasons for it. So just call in and say what those reasons are. Why don't people often do that? I mean, granted, we had pretty honest people here today that eventually fell back to the, it's faith.
Well, but that's them being honest.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm happy.
That's the moment of honesty when, after all the scientific pretense that they begin their calls with.
Yeah. When your blanket of illusory reasons is pulled away, when the last little thread of that is gone, and you say, "Oh, it's faith," well, you've admitted defeat. You've admitted that you don't have a reasoned position, that you cannot defend it. And so don't you dare, after getting to faith, come back with tag or Plantinga's modologic ontological argument or any of those other philosophical obfuscations that don't prove what you think they prove, are fallacious, and aren't the reason that you believe. At least be honest about what you believe, and we'll have an honest discussion in return. And if you get to faith and say that, hey, that's okay with you, I'll say it's not okay with me, and then we can go on our merry way. I think the big fear is that when other people see you in a conversation where all of your arguments fall by the wayside and you're left with faith, that's why I want to have this conversation. Because those people are now in a position where they get to recognize, do I want to be? Do I want my positions to be based on reason and evidence? Am I okay with faith? Why should I be okay with faith? If faith can simultaneously justify my belief that Jesus turns into a cracker, or that Jesus walked on water, or my faith that I'll get virgins in heaven when I die, if I'm a martyr, or any number of things. You can justify anything with faith. So what good is it? And isn't it actually bad? Don't you care about an actual pathway to truth? I know you do, because you keep calling in to give reasoned arguments. And then when they fail, you go back to faith. Just give it up. Thomas in Champaign, Illinois, how are you?
Hi, good, thanks. How's it going, Matt? How's it going, Martin?
Good, we've got Oreos.
Yeah. I was thinking that if Jesus was turned into a cracker, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man turned into one of those Oreos that you're eating. Okay, so I have a question for you guys. When you were transitioning from your theism to atheism, I'm not sure about you, Martin, but I know, Matt, you did. Did you did you get rid of any physical objects, like crosses, books, things that you kind of collected over all those years that had, personal and sentimental value, but did you actually get rid of them?
Nope. There were probably, I was never big on decorations, so I didn't have like crosses hung up all over the house or the footprints poster. It always seems kind of kitschy to me. I wasn't the type of Christian who had my house decorated. Plus, I spent a number of years not really caring that much about my religion. It wasn't until I got back into it that I got some of that. But I still have the Bible that I still have the New Testament that was given to my parents upon my birth. And I still have the King James Bible that I used all through my teenage years. It's highlighted, verses are marked, notes in the margins. I took it to camp. I've still got the flyer from the summer camp that I went to, neatly tucked in the Bible. I have a couple of other Bibles, one that I bought after I was an atheist because I wanted to have an NIV for to reference those because the NIV is copyrighted. I don't know how you copyright the Bible. And I have lots and lots of apologist books. Some of them I got while I was still a Christian. There's books on like Revelation prophecy and things. And others I got afterwards, like most of the Lee Strobel crap. I keep all of it. It's on a bookshelf. I use it for reference. I don't see any reason to get rid of it. Yeah,
for me though, like I had a few things collected over the years, like the palm leaves that you fold into a cross, or sometimes it's just like a prayer book. And I found that like over the last year or two, I was going through a bunch of my stuff. I saw it and I thought of and I threw it away. And to me, it was almost like a letting go of it completely, like and not keeping it around for the fear of, like if I throw it away, I'll be fearful. If I do, I just threw it away. And actually, last year I bought a Bible, and I plan to keep that just as kind of like reading and reference material. But just other things like that I accumulated over the years. And just like a kind of a snarky thing that I did was when I was reading The God Delusion, I thought, what better to use as a bookmark than my certificate of baptism?
Yeah. It's one of those things that's entirely personal. If throwing away all that stuff actually is a form of catharsis and makes you, more comfortable, that's fine. But I wouldn't. I mean, if keeping it, like I don't have any crosses that I folded out of palm leaves. My mom probably might have had some. I don't even know if she kept them. But if it was a key, there were keepsakes that meant something to me. I have pictures of our church youth group. I still have some of those pictures. Some of those people I'm actually still friends with. Some of them friended me on Facebook and found out what I do and immediately unfriended me. Yeah, keep what you like, get rid of what you like.
Yeah, you make those rules in your own life.
Yeah, you don't ever want to throw anything away that would actually be useful to someone else. But yeah, I'm just kind of talking about the little things that you develop just a pure sentimental attachment to. And for me personally, that kind of helped get me over, a certain edge and take my.
I don't hear this very often, but sometimes Christians will talk to atheists and they'll have this assumption that there's something horrible that happened to upset us that alienated us from the church and religion, and that's why we're atheists now. And a lot of people are really surprised to hear me say that I have nothing but very enjoyable, pleasant memories of my youth. I was through early adolescence, but I was a regular churchgoer, and then there was a big church in Houston that we went to, my parents and I, and I was involved in the youth group and the choir and going to camp and all the rest of it. It was a summer camp, and when I was 14 years old, where I saw the most impressive exercise in crowd manipulation from the youth minister. Didn't realize that's what it was at the time, but now, it was really amazing. But again, I enjoy all those memories. Those were good times, and people are a little bewildered to hear me say that. I'm like, look, but it had nothing to do with how good a time you have at church, the fun that you have in the activities, the personal enjoyment, the friends you make, et cetera, et cetera. Those are all separate issues apart from. Are these claims actually true? Does a God really exist? Was Jesus?
And I've mentioned before, I'm pretty much in the same boat with Martin, and that is that
I didn't have a lot of paraphernalia though.
I don't have any real bad memories of this. I have pretty much nothing but good memories. I like or genuinely love most of the people that I interacted with. I didn't have bad experiences. I didn't get mad at God. I didn't lose anybody to God. I was never mistreated in the church. I wasn't molested. Although I know of people who were, which I found out much later. But yeah, I got nothing but good memories, which is why after a few years of being in the Navy and the tech industry, I went back. And that was this is I'm still a Christian. I've been a Christian, but I've been backslidden. I didn't really care that much about it. And now I want to get serious because I had all those good memories. And it was a process of learning and study that led me away from religion, not any anger or irritation. And now I absolutely despise the religion and the fictitious, thug that they worship and what it actually does to people. But I don't hate the believers, people in my family and all that other stuff. And it didn't change my memories. Yeah. I don't like the hymns. I don't like hearing the hymns that I used to like as much because now they have a different meaning. But that doesn't change the fond memory I had of actually singing in the church.
Great music, anyways. You can't really get rid of that, but yeah. Okay.
So, thanks so much for calling.
Appreciate it, Thomas.
Next caller. All right, thanks, guys.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Rick in Buena Park, how are you?
I'm pretty good.
How you doing?
It's interesting that I got through, especially because of what I believe. And I told the gentleman that answered the phone that I didn't know if anybody ever talked to you about things that I'm going to talk to you about. I haven't watched the show, but I watch a few on YouTube. And I got interested, and I wanted to call in because some of the things you said back at that time I was interested in that I do not believe in. Okay? And I am a Christian. I've been a Christian for roughly 30 years. I'm 66 years old. Was not a believer till I was 37 years old. Had one of these so-called experiences that you don't believe in.
No. That's not true. That's not true.
Oh, okay.
I believe that people have experiences. I don't believe the explanation for the experiences that they offer.
Okay. Well, I won't get into it because I never told very few people what happened to me because it's so weird. No one would believe it anyway. But it did. The experience was witnessed by my wife because I thought actually I had a horrible nightmare and was freaking out about it the next day. But I remember my wife was there, and so I went in and talked to her the next day about it. It happened in the middle of the night, about 3 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked her if something happened, and she explained to me what she saw, and then I realized it was not a dream or nightmare; it was real. So that's what turned me into Christianity. I was trying to be a Christian for about 6 months, but I went out and howled at the moon, tried to speak in tongues and all that stuff because people told me to be a Christian, you did this and you did that, and I tried. It didn't work.
Yeah, it depends.
God to reveal Himself to me if He was real.
Well, maybe that's the problem. You were trying to become a aware Christian.
Yeah, I wanted to believe. I wanted to see if this was true because, tell you the truth, it scared the hell out of me. Reading in Proverbs is the first thing in the Bible that I ever read, and I thought, if this is true, I'm in trouble. I was 37 years old, retired, never had to work again the rest of my life. I was financially secure. I told people I had a big house. I had 3 kids, 4 dogs, a beautiful wife, and never had to work again. And I got bored. I sold my businesses because things got bad back in oil embargoes back in the 80s, and I sold everything. And I sat around the house for about a year and a half, waiting for something to come up. And
Can I briefly interrupt you, Rick?
Pardon me?
Can I just briefly break in here?
We have 3 minutes.
Yeah, let me get back to your show.
Yeah, because the thing is, we're down to like the last 4 minutes of the show, and I figured you didn't call just to give your testimonial because the note here says that you have something you want to talk about the subject of free will. So I thought let's get to that quickly because we're in the last few minutes.
I'm sorry.
No, we're just running out of time. That's all.
I get a little wordy, so I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Me too.
I didn't realize there was short of time. Let me see if I can get the computer so I can see you guys as I'm talking to you. Hold on a second.
Okay. Well, anyway,
what I called about
go ahead.
was basically, are you familiar with supralaptarianism?
With what?
Say again.
Supralaptarianism?
Superlaptarianism?
Yes.
No.
It's a belief. Okay, well, I just found out, I've read a little bit about it, but I just read out from a Bible study guide that I'm involved with on Monday nights that's actually what he thinks we are. Because there's very few people that believe what we believe or will admit that they believe what we believe. And basically what I believe is God is, and I'll give you, maybe this will tell you where I'm coming from. Everything that happens is God's plan. Nothing is beyond what He has planned to happen, including the good, the bad, the ugly. So everything that bad that happens in this world is in God's hands, and He's planned it that way.
Okay.
Everything good is the same thing.
Did you email?
Pardon me?
Did you email the show and get an answer yesterday?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Well,
so predestination thing, basically.
This idea of that everything's God will and God planned is not uncommon, and the rejection of free will. I mean, Calvinists don't hold to libertarian free will.
Yeah, I am a Calvinist too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So. Okay, so then your question to us is.
My question is to you is the statements that I heard you made and the few things that I have seen, watched you guys' program, seems to me that you are thinking of a God that I know you. I think if I remember right, He's this awful, horrible God or whatever that does these mean things.
Well, you just said you believed in that God.
I do.
Okay.
If you read the Bible, you can't believe in anything but a God that is willing to kill millions and millions of people.
Why would you worship that God?
Because the alternative is, number one, that I would go to hell.
Okay, stop.
No.
I got 30 seconds. They're putting the credits up. I put you on hold. Here's the answer to it. Sent somebody else who wrote in with some of the same crap. So we're all puppets of a capricious dictator who may or may not reveal himself, may or may not make your life miserable or wonderful, irrespective of our desires or actions. If your God does exist, He's an immoral thug, and I wouldn't worship Him. And it's pathetic to keep hearing from people who toss aside their humanity and morality in order to support this inhuman,